Hello and welcome back to another episode. Now today I want to share with you my Wii game collection, and it is a Wii game collection. It's not the biggest collection that you're ever going to see, and the reason for that is because, well, the Wii simply isn't my primary console. It hasn't been for quite a while now, actually. But I never got rid of it because the Wii has some unique gameplay elements and styles and potential that may not have been, in my opinion, fully fulfilled, but nonetheless leads to some games just being better, or at the very least more interesting on this console. And so I think that's what this game collection really represents, is either games which I couldn't get on another console, or games which I've got because I like the way the Wii handles them, if you see what I mean, or I was curious about the way that the Wii handled them. And a little bit like, I suppose, my other smaller collections, like my GameCube collection, it represents, I suppose, a small range of titles which I'm interested in personally, but also sort of fill in niche blanks and gaps in my overall gaming experience. So I suppose without any further ado, in no particular order, let's start here. And he says no particular order, and it just so happens that the first game is Wii Sports. Now, Wii Sports obviously came with the console, and it was, for many people, their first experience of what the Wii could do. In particular, tennis on this. And tennis was very, very good. I remember playing tennis constantly, almost constantly, along with golf, actually, with my friends in uni. And we all loved it. The only problem is, as ever, when someone discovered that all you had to do was to sort of flick the remote with a bit of gusto instead of actually swinging your arm, that's when things got a bit sort of, I suppose, cheap with that particular game experience. In terms of game experience, we have Mercury Meltdown Revolution. Mercury Meltdown is a puzzle game where you essentially roll a blob of mercury around. It's very stylized. It's very sort of mad science kind of thing going on. And I really like, again, the way that the game is played. You sort of you rock the Wiimote around, and that moves the landscape, and your little blob of mercury can traverse various obstacles. It can change colours. It can be magnetized and all this kind of thing. It's a really good game, and again takes advantage of the way that the Wii plays. Speaking of Wii Play, or Wii Plays, we have Wii Play. This actually was a game bundled with if you bought a secondary Wiimote, and so I bought a second Wiimote, buy a second Wiimote, and this came with it. Again, quite a good selection of essentially demos as to what the Wiimote could do in terms of rotating in various planes and movements. Now here we have Indiana Jones: The Staff of Kings. Now this game is one which I haven't got that far in, because actually the controls get in the way of the game slightly. And this is one of the weaknesses of the Wii, is that sometimes people were just sort of shoehorning in gesture controls and complicated button setups which didn't have to be there. And in the case of Indiana Jones: Staff of Kings, that's kind of where we're at. So I will return to this, I will try and complete it because I love Indiana Jones, but wasn't the best. Now this is a nice simple example of what the Wii could do, and that is revive the point and click adventure. Secret Files Tunguska is a game which I've played on my phone, I've played it on the DS, and I've played it on the Wii, and the Wii version so far has been the best, not least because my wife and I could play it together. And it has some, just like most point and click adventures, some very strange solutions to problems, you know, like greasing something using butter instead of using grease or whatever. Next we have NBA Live 08. Now this game is just very, very good. I particularly like the shoot mechanics, the sort of the flicking the Wiimote to shoot the basketball. I've always loved basketball computer games. I've always loved basketball. I play basketball, or certainly used to play it a lot more. And I simply had to get this for the Wii. It's a good game. Next we have The Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy. Now this is a game which I haven't played tons of, but I do like the art style. It's an okay game. It's a sort of an action beat 'em up, and I quite like it. But in particular, it's the style of the game which I was drawn to, and I'll have to return to soon. Next we have Tenchu Shadow Assassins. This game I haven't played a lot of. That's because actually the controls again, felt a little bit off. I'll have to go back to it and try it again, but it's made by Ubisoft, the same people who made Red Steel, which actually is coming up next. And Red Steel, I think, is probably a better control experience. So yeah, speaking of Red Steel, we have Red Steel, one of the first, I think this might have been a launch game, if I'm right. One of the first shoot 'em ups on the Wii, and it was bringing back the light gun experience in that sense, and it did it quite well. I liked this game, though when subsequent games came out, like for example Goldeneye on the Wii, the weaknesses in this one were really revealed, and Red Steel 2, though, thankfully did its own thing. But we'll come to that. We'll come to that in a moment. Next we have Overlord Dark Legend. This game is one which, again, I haven't played a ton of yet because I've had other games to play. I got this relatively recently, but it looks like fun. Use your Wiimote to guide your brave young hero and his loyal band of minions through this epic, twisted fairy tale. How could that not be at least slightly fun? And again, the art style looks like quite good fun as well, but I haven't played too much of it. I should. Here we go, Red Steel 2. I've actually done a little Let's Play of this. I really like it. I really like the way that they used the Motion Plus, the way that they loosened up in terms of the sword play elements and when you could use your sword compared to the original Red Steel, and also the sort of the I don't know, the Western set in Japan kind of post-apocalyptic Mad Max vibe that you got going on. It's a good game and well worth it if you have a Wii. You should try it out at least. Here's another one that you should try out if you've got a Wii, and that is No More Heroes. This is a highly stylized game. It's got essentially something which looks a bit like a lightsaber in it, and the game itself is one which, when I first got it, I didn't appreciate. I found it really, I suppose, overly structured. But actually, once you get into it, it's a very good game. It's a good, essentially, it's a good, I hate to say it, Japanese game. It feels very much like what it is. It's fun, it's quirky, it plays with the graphical style. In particular, for example, playing on 8-bit and our sort of nostalgia for those sort of graphics, but set in its own little world. It's worth a try. Actually, and also I want to get hold of No More Heroes 2 if I can at some point. Next we have Resident Evil Darkside Chronicles. This is an on-rails shooter, and it's the follow-up to the Umbrella Chronicles, which I believe I have somewhere here. A good game. It's actually designed to be used with the Wii Zapper, which I don't have, but I enjoy it. It's also quite nice and quite good fun revisiting some of the old sort of game locales in both of those games, actually, and some of the characters in this sort of unfolding narrative on the rail shooter. Wii Fit Plus. This is a game which we got with the Wii Fit board, or the Wii paddle board, or whatever it's called. Pretty good. My wife and I used to use it quite a lot, although we fell off the wagon when we moved house, as it were. We sort of stopped using it, but it's good fun. I like it. It's also it makes especially Wii Sports Resort a lot of fun in particular. Next we have Goldeneye 007. This, when it was announced, was the most exciting thing I could possibly comprehend. Goldeneye, but using the sort of light gun-like controls of the Wii, and this one really does it very well. I love the things like how you reload, sort of the gestions. Basically, you sort of flick, I think, the nunchuck to reload your gun. I love the aiming. I love the speed of the game. This was good. This was very, very good. And yes, I know that they brought out a sort of an enhanced graphical version for the Xbox 360. Was it coming? It was GoldenEye Reloaded, I think. But not as good. The whole point of that game, I think, was the control mechanism, and it worked very, very well. Next we have Tiger Woods PGA Tour 09. I just wanted another golf game which wasn't Wii Sports. And this one delivers. It's pretty good. And also the all play feature makes it so that actually people who aren't necessarily the best with the Wiimote can still have a go. Next we have Mario Kart Wii. magnificent. I really like the steering controls in this, because when you get it right and you're sort of going around a bend, you're sort of correcting, and you sort of it just feels like you're in a go-kart. And I know some people really don't like the controls, that control mechanism, and instead they go back and they sort of, it's compatible with various control mechanisms, including, for example, the GameCube remote. But I really liked the steering wheel, and I continue to play that game. My wife and I both love it, in fact. Next, we have another stylized game, and that is Mad World. Mad World is an 18. It's not a kid's game, but it's also a very stylized black and white, but with lots of red blood type game. It is completely over the top, completely crazy. Reminds me very much of a Rockstar type title, but this is actually from Sega. And again, if you have a Wii, you should give this a go. So at times the motion controls feel a bit sluggish, like when you're trying to sort of slice in certain places and certain people, but it's good, it's fun again, and also a little bit like certain other games, it sort of accepts the limitations of the Wii in terms of graphics and runs with its own graphical style. Next we have Gravity, or rather say Professor Heinz Wolf's Gravity. It's a fun puzzle game, as it says on the back here. Play with the laws of gravity. 100 levels of complex puzzles are awaiting to be solved. How you crack them is entirely up to you. The only constant that cannot be ignored is gravity. A little bit like real life in that sense. Gravity is a fairly universal presence. Next we have Raving Rabbids Party Collection. This is so much fun in terms of party, basically, in terms of multiplayer. Yes, it's got Rayman Raving Rabbids, Raving Rabbids 2, but actually the best one is the third one, Rayman Raving Rabbids TV Party. The presentation of TV Party is great, because actually you are controlling essentially a series of TV shows on a daily schedule using the Wiimote as a remote, and the mini games are so much fun. I've never put it this way. I've got a friend who's a mechanic, and he's quite a sort of a manly man, and the two of us dancing to Britney Spears' Toxic got our respective partners giggling like no one's business. So this game is great, and it just sucks you in with the humour and with the Rabbids. Fantastic. Next we have Trauma Center Second Opinion. This game actually uses the remote really quite well, the Wiimote controls. I have played, I suppose, about maybe 20% of the game. I need to, again, get back to this one. I love, in particular, for example, the Japanese-ness of it, but also I really quite like the fact that you are having to do a variety of actions, for example, fixing bones, doing operations, stitching people up. It is good, and there is a DS version. I have tried that, but actually I prefer the Wii version of the game. Just a slightly bigger screen, and also the controls I just find a bit more pleasing. WarioWare Smooth Moves was one of the first games I ever tried on the Wii. It was sort of in the little pile that we had at uni, and it's great. It's lewd, rude Wario fun, and a whole load of essentially mini games and demos as to, again, what the Wiimote could do. I also quite liked the fact that they sort of incorporated the Wiimote into the game and the art style as a sort of a relic. And actually, I think that's the case in a couple of other games. For example, Crossbow Links, Crossbow Training. The design of the crossbow looks a bit like the Wii in the Wii Zapper. They play with the fact that you're holding a Wiimote. House of the Dead Overkill. I've done a little Let's Play of this. I love it. It is full of overkill. It is lots of grindhouse theatre fun, and especially with the blaster, the hand cannon. That's what you need when you're playing this game. Again, just magnificent. Next we have Wii Sports Resort. We got this when we first got hold of the Wii Motion Plus add-ons, and it really sold, I suppose, the add-ons as as a good investment. The one-to-one movement was much better with the Wii Motion Plus, and also actually the range of games you could play, mini games and things on the back are fantastic. We really liked the frisbee golf and also the kendo. Lots of fun. Next we have Mad Dog Mccree Gunslinger Pack. I've already talked about this as being a slight disappointment, and quite a tragic disappointment, because I really wanted this game to be great, but it's just not. Such a shame, because I used to see it in my youth in the arcades, and never got to play the full light gun experience. But the Wii game just isn't good. I kept it though for nostalgic purposes. Next we have Monopoly Streets. I haven't yet had a chance to play with anyone yet. Such a shame. I really want to play this game and see if it makes Monopoly a bit more fun than regular Monopoly. I like it though. I've tried mucking about with it. I enjoy it, but I need more people, actual people to play with. That would be great. Next we have Link's Crossbow Training, and as I was saying before, we have here the crossbow and sort of the Wiimote built into the artwork on there. It's a small game, an add-on, really using the graphics and the engine of Twilight Princess, but using the zapper to do crossbow training. Again, it's a solid experience and making use of the controls of the Wii in a very effective way. Ooh, just by coincidence, we happen to have next Twilight Princess. This was one of the very first games I got on the Wii, because I used to have it on the GameCube, and they released the GameCube and Wii versions at more or less the same time. And I played it through on the GameCube, loved it, but I wanted that motion experience. So I tried it on the Wii and loved it again. Interestingly, they had to flip the game, because Link has always been left-handed traditionally, and on the GameCube version he is left-handed, but most people, it was thought, would be right-handed playing this game, so they flipped the entire game world. Effectively, this is a mirror image of the GameCube game, just so that you could be using Link's right hand instead of his left hand when you're swiping your sword. Next we have the Umbrella Chronicles, Resident Evil. I've already talked about its follow-up, the Darkside Chronicles, and it's fantastic. Again, on rails, really great to be able to revisit the world of Resident Evil 2 in that sort of on-rails shooter sort of format. Next we have Super Mario Galaxy. This is a game that you simply have to get if you own a Wii. A little bit like I should have said that for Zelda as well. You simply have to get it if you own a Wii. It is magnificent. It takes everything that they've learned from the N64 onwards in terms of gameplay and throws it into a whole new world, literally, in a whole new galaxy. I love the running around and playing with gravity and all this kind of thing. Super Mario Galaxy 2 is something which I really want to try out, but alas, presumably because it's such a good game, because it's a Mario game, its price is staying quite high, so I'll have to try and get it at some point. Next we have an interesting one, Let's Tap. Now Let's Tap is a weird one, because as you can see they have sort of the Wiimotes on little boxes here, and you tap the box to vibrate the Wiimote and therefore win the game. And I have one of the boxes just here, so you put the Wiimote on there, on the box, and you tap here where the fingers are, and you can actually sort of competitively tap as well. It's a strange one, but I had to give it a go, because again it's another way to use the console, and I was curious about it. Okay, so we're entering the final furlong here. Next we have Star Wars The Force Unleashed. This game was released simultaneously on, for example, the Xbox 360 and the PS3, I believe. And in it, on those versions of the game, there is a more in-depth physics engine. You can break more things more splinterily, as it were. But this version had you being able to control a lightsaber with your Wiimote. So I got this version. It's a good game. It's solid. It's not amazing. We all know the problems that this game has, in so much as it has very repetitive boss fights and animations, but and level design and so on and so forth. But the story's okay, and the experience, the Wii the experience that the Wii affords you using that game is fun. Next, we have one that my wife got me for Christmas a couple of years ago now, actually. Horrible History's Ruthless Romans. This is partly because of I am an archaeologist, and my interests, but also partly because it seemed like an old and interesting, quirky title. And it is a bit old and interesting and quirky. It's educational. It's also set in a 3D version of Rome with lots of little mini games. I'd recommend it, and I don't think it's too expensive because, again, I think lots of people sort of don't want to learn stuff, so they didn't bother buying it. Next, we have SSX Blur. This is a game which I got because I love SSX 3, and I really wanted that experience using Wiimote controls. And it does, for the most part, deliver. I have got to a point where, because you sort of use you tilt the nunchuck in this game, as well as using the Wiimote, you tilt the nunchuck to add to the cut of your board. There's one point where you're having to do the slalom to pass a test to get forward in the game, and I can't quite do it. There's something about it just doesn't quite deliver, at least for me, yet, on that sort of hard angle turning. But the experience of sliding through, you're having to lean and jump, and it's a little bit more tactile, a little bit more visceral than simply SSX 3. But SSX 3 is a better game. Hence, I have the two. Next, we have, such a disappointment, and that is Super Mario AllStars. I happen to have just wasted money on this because I thought this would have something interesting in it, but instead it is just literally Super Mario AllStars, which I've already played. I think I have a copy of it somewhere on the SNES. They just ported that game from the cartridge to the disc. There is a booklet in there with some interesting little, I suppose, microcosms of insight into elements of the game, but the history of Mario. But considering this is a 25th anniversary Mario title, they could have fit so much more onto a disc, and they could have delivered so much more in terms of the artwork, the interviews. So I feel as though I wasted my money on that one a little bit. Next, we have Jurassic The Hunted. I have not played this game. I'll have to play it at some point. I think you have to go around shooting dinosaurs. It should be at least entertaining, if not a good game. Next, we have Wii Music. This game was late, and it overpromised in terms of the experience. They were talking about how you'd be playing instruments sort of virtually using the Wiimote and nunchuck, and it's not really like that. It's more like a dance timing game, but with some vague element of motions which are vaguely linked with the instruments that you're meant to be playing. It's not a virtual orchestra, for example, which is a shame. Next, we have Cursed Mountain. Now, this game is one which I'm yet to start, and the reason why I say that is that I'm deliberately holding back for when I can play it through in one go. So probably actually after I'm done with Skyward Sword. It looks and sounds like great fun, though. It's a fairly adult game, a 16, and you're climbing a mountain somewhere in Tibet, to try and fight evil spirits and solve a particular mystery. Lost brother, you've lost your brother. So I want to play this game, and I've heard very good things about it. Next, we have Metroid Prime Trilogy, one of the most beautiful trilogies, one of the most beautiful collections I've ever seen or owned, probably second only to the orange box in my mind, anyway. It is the definitive Metroid Prime experience. I love the GameCube release of Metroid Prime, the first one, but in terms of the story and in terms of consistency of gameplay, this is the way to play the Metroid Prime Trilogy. Magnificent. Utterly magnificent. Next, we have our final little pile of games, And they include, first of all, Order Up. This is a game which I adore. You're running a little restaurant, you're fulfilling people's orders in the kitchen using a variety of motion controls, and I did compare and contrast this with Mad Dog Mccree in a video a little while ago, and it came out on top. That is to say, Order Up came out on top. House of the Dead 2 and 3 return. I simply had to get this when I saw it in the shop. I haven't played it in depth yet because I keep on getting too excited about House of the Dead Overkill. But 2 and 3 I have very fond memories of from the arcades growing up. Next we have Manhunt II. This is a title from Rockstar and a very controversial game. A game which I remember there being huge amounts of controversy. I think it was banned in Australia, wasn't it? It's okay, but it's not as controversial as people seem to make out. Yes, it's very bloody and a bit voyeuristic, but I've seen worse. Next we have Resident Evil 4. Now this is another game which I first played on the Wii, on the GameCube, sorry. Another game which I first played on the GameCube, but as soon as the Wii version came out, I simply had to get the Wii version, and I was not disappointed. The controls, given that it is still it's third person, and you're aiming using the Wiimote, the controls in this are superb. If you want to get several knee shots in a row, and you get yourself good enough, you can do it with this game. I mean, you could do it with the GameCube technically, but this one is just quicker, more visceral, more effective, and it's got a couple of extras in there as well. I think things like costumes, that kind of thing. Next we have Epic Mickey from Disney. I like the game. It's a curious one. It's Unleash the Power of the Brush. Essentially, you're using the Wiimote as a brush, which changes and has an effect on the world around you, and won Best of E3 2010 from IGN. So it is a good game. It's one though which feels very Disney, and by that I mean to say you can feel that there's a sort of control on where the story and where the darkness goes, as it were. It's not as it could have been really epic, as the name implies, but it's held slightly back because it is essentially a mascot that they're dealing with. I prefer Kingdom Hearts, let's just say, when you're talking about Disney properties. Next we have Tomb Raider Underworld. This is a game which I got because I wanted to, it ties in with other Tomb Raider titles that I have on the Xbox 360, and it's pretty good. Although the better of the Tomb Raider games on the Wii, in my opinion, so far, there's not going to be any others, is actually Tomb Raider Anniversary on the Wii. This is an anniversary title. Essentially, it's celebrating the original game and revisiting the original game, but using the Wiimote controls and things like, so you can, for example, brush dust away to reveal clues. You can swing using, and you can. It's a good implementation of Wii controls into a PlayStation game with updated graphics. That's one of the few times I can say that the Wii has updated the graphics of a game, and that is with Tomb Raider Anniversary. And there we have it. That is my Wii collection.
Actually, hang on just a second. I actually forgot 2 titles. I'm just now editing the video, and I just remembered that, first of all, I mentioned that I was playing, and indeed you know that I'm playing, from my my previous video, Legend of Zelda Skyward Sword. Now this game continues to be superb, and it's only getting better and better. I'm now 27 hours in, and actually this is, fun fact, this is actually just beyond the point that I stopped playing back in 2013. So 4 years later, I'm now caught up, and it's beautiful. And actually, I can't believe I stopped when I stopped, because I stopped just when you get the claw grabs, the hook shot type things, and beyond that, there's a pirate ship. You're exploring a pirate ship, and you're the concept as well around that is superb. The time travel elements, the fact that you are in a boat. This is a little bubble of time that is in an ocean, but actually you're sailing in a desert in the current time. So clever, and I cannot wait to see where this game ends up. So in the very near future, I'll hopefully be completing this game, but after 27 hours I can tell you I am in love all over again. Yes, there's a bit of a hump at the beginning. You have to get over in terms of the controls, or rather, sorry, in terms of the way that the controls, that the gameplay mechanics are fed to you, and Fee continues to be extremely annoying. But I've decided that in as much as this whole game is a sort of an homage to the Zelda series, surely Fee is essentially an homage to how annoying Navi was, or is infamous for having been, in Ocarina of Time. They've made her deliberately repeating the bleeding obvious. Surely that's the point, isn't it? Anyway, so that's that's that game. And the second one is Ghost Squad. Now, I wouldn't normally have intervened and just sort of gone, I need to show you this, but it was the two of them were together, and Ghost Squad is the last one, which for some reason wasn't in the other part, and it's very good. It's a straight sort of arcade transfer to the Wii. It's precisely the sort of stuff which I really liked in the late 90s. In the arcades, and that's the reason why I've got it now. It's an arcade shooter from Sega, and it's just, just look at that stuff there. It just, the panda costume alone is magnificent. Anyway, there you go. I simply had to include these in my Wii collection. Back to me, I guess.
I think it's small but perfectly formed, and I suppose I've tried to find games that are either interesting in the case of Tap, or which are just bring something else to the table, like Resident Evil 4, or for example Mercury Meltdown Revolution, where you can actually use the Wii in a way which is creative. And I think that's something which Nintendo and which the developers kind of lost the sense of over time, was the fact that the Wii could have been and should have been a creative and surprising console. And instead it kind of became a shovelware platform, which is a bit of a shame, bloated with mini games and tagged on motion controls. Anyway guys, hopefully this has been interesting. As ever, until next time, do take care. Bye bye.